Hey, guys. All right, so what we're talking about today is just a continuation of what we were talking about in 8.1, but things get a little more difficult because you can see that your equations become, your equation's going to have more variables in it. Remember that we set it up and we said that if we look at this, we're always going to look if it's supplementary, because if it makes a straight line, that they add up to 180 degrees. So we can see that it's a straight edge there. So actually, we're talking about measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2, right? And they tell us that the measure of angle 1 is 2x. So we're just going to substitute in the 2x, right? Plus the measure of angle 2, which would be in place of b, right? Right, is x plus 93 equals that 180 degrees. Now we just need to simplify, solve, and come up with a solution, right? We're going to find the angle measures. So again, we're going to say the measure of angle 1 equals 2x, and the measure of angle 2 equals x plus 93. We're just going to kind of plug that in, right? But now we're going to have to solve. So we simplify, we add these two together, that's going to give us 3x plus the 93 equals 180. Then we subtract, because we're going to undo, right? So we're going to subtract 93 from both sides. We want it with 3x equals 87. And again, if I were you, I would make sure that you double check. You check with a calculator. And then, of course, now what we're going to do is divide both sides by 3, which means x equals 29. So now to find the measure of the angles, well, we're going to have to plug it back in, right? So that means we're going to have 2 times the 29. And again, check with your calculator, but that's 58 degrees, right? And then check this next one. We're going to have 29 plus, fill that in for the x, plus the 93, which equals 122. Of course, we know that they add up to 180 degrees, so we can also check and say, well, 58 plus 122. Check that with your calculator, but that equals 180. So, yep, that works. So we know that this is a 58 degree angle and this is a 122 degree angle. Okay, and all we've done is start with what we understood. We see that it makes a straight edge. That means it's 180 degrees, makes a straight line. So because it makes a straight line, these two angles add up to 180. We plugged in the values they gave us, the algebraic values. Then we use what we did in second term to solve. We solve the equation, we get x equals 29. And then we have to remember, we didn't just find the measure. We have to go back and figure out by substituting x into those original expressions for the angles measure. And we plug that in and figure it out. And we can always check it by making sure that they add up to the degrees. Okay? So if we look at this one, remember we talked about that this right here tells us that this is a 90 degree angle. So again, we're going to set up an equation, right? You're showing that you can take and apply the algebra that we talked about and setting up an equation, and use logic to set up an equation and then solve, okay? So we're going to set it up. I mean, this is your verbal model. It's measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 equals 90. Then we just substitute in what they said angle 1 and angle 2 was. So they're giving us x minus 6 and 7x. Now remember, we're trying to solve for x so that we can figure out what the measure of angle 1 is and what the measure of angle 2 is, right? And they told us that the measure of angle 2 equals 7x. Measure of angle 1 is x minus 6, okay? Okay, so now what we're going to do is simplify this. So I've taught you, turn everything into addition. So you're going to have x plus negative 6 plus the 7x equals 90. We're going to combine like terms, right? So we're going to put the x and the 7x together. It's going to give us 8x plus negative 6 equals the 90. And then you're going to solve, right? So go ahead and go through the steps of solving. Okay, so you would have gone through the steps of solving. You would have added 6 to both sides, gotten 8x equals 96, divided both sides by 8, you got x equals 12. Now you have to plug that in to the expressions that the measure of angle 1 is going to be 12 minus 6, which equals 6. And the measure of angle 2 is going to be 7 times 12 minus 6, just 7 minus 12, or times 12, which is going to equal 84. And 84 plus 6 equals 90. So that means this angle right here is 6 degrees. And this angle number 2, is 84 degrees. Okay, there's your solutions. So what we're doing is what we did in 8.1, and you're setting it up. I mean, this is what you got to set it up. You're showing that you can look at the geometry, set up an equation, solve the equation, come up with a solution and an answer, right? Because this is pretty much your answer is the measure of those angles is 6 and 84 degrees. Okay. Okay. So why don't you do these two? See if you can set up the equation. Look at what we did. You set up those equations. Let's see how you do with it. Okay. Hit pause. Set them up. Okay, so as you solve this, you should have come up with that x equals, on the first one, that x equals 14 because you had the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equaled 90. As you went through the steps to solve that, you found that x equaled 14. You substituted the values in. So you would have substituted 6x for the measure of angle 1 and x minus 8. And that would have equaled 90. Then when you solve for x, right, you got x equals 14. Then when you plug that in, because again, we said that angle 1 was 6x, and we said that angle 2 was 2x minus 8. As you substituted 14 in there, you would have gotten that the measure of angle 1 was 84 degrees, measure of angle 2 was 6 degrees. So, and you might write it in just to make sure things make sense, that this is 84 degrees and that the measure of angle 2 is 6 degrees. Okay. So this is where somebody's going to say, oh, I pull out a protractor. Well, I don't think that's really 6 degrees. I think the drawing is actually more like 30 degrees. So the protractor is not going to work. Okay. Okay, so you're solving, you're taking geometry, understanding what complementary and supplementary mean, and understanding that one's 180 degrees, one's 90 degrees. You're solving, setting up an equation, understanding those, solving, and then coming up with solutions and answers. Okay? All right, that's the gist of this lesson. These are two problems we're going to talk about in class, but really, it's the same thing, right? So we're going to talk about this in class. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is for the quiz, right? I'm going to ask you to set up what the equation is going to look like. What would the equation be for this first one? What would the equation be for the second one? And then you can come to class and we can talk about how to solve it. But the hope is you're going to understand how to do this, how to solve it. You're going to set it up. Okay, look at what we've done. Each time what we did was we set it up according to the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2, substituted in what they gave us for the terms for that, solved for the variable, and then applied what we found our solution to find the measure of those angles. In each problem, that's what we've done. Notice there's a similarity to each one of these equations. There's also the difference. You have to understand that a straight line makes a supplementary angle. They add up to 180 degrees. Complementary, if it's a right angle, it adds up to the two angles add up to 90 degrees. That's the main thing you're learning with this, or you're expressing with this. Okay? So now the goal would be you do these two, set up your equations with them. You don't have to solve it, but if you can, that'd be great. Come to class. Hey, this was a 12-minute video. That works pretty good. Okay, let's see if you can do this. We will talk about these two in class because that'll be pretty much that next part for those kids who didn't watch the videos. Okay, but also to review and make sure you guys have your notes. But hey, if you can solve this, and let's see how you do. Good luck. Okay, see you in class.